Dzień dobry. Dzień dobry. And, okay, spoko. That's about it for my Polish. So we'll see if I can pick up any more words over the next few days here. So for the next 45 minutes, we're going to be talking about how to create a social startup. And what does that mean? How to socialize your startup. Why do you want to do that? What's it in for your startup? Why is that important? I hope that some of you are going to be tweeting this. Use the hashtag Bitspiration 2013. And you can all breathe easier because this presentation is already online. That's what I always do. So if you go to http://bit.ly/bitlyjd, you can download this slideshow right now. If I'm boring you, you can download it, go ahead 10 minutes and see what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. So I will not be offended. So let me start by saying I've given talks in 12 countries on 4 continents. Spoke at the United Nations last year about how to use social media to combat global poverty. But this is my first time in Poland. So let me ask, first of all, I want to sort of take the temperature of the room. How many folks here are from Poland, live in Poland, or you're born in Poland? So let me see a show of hands. So about 2/3 of you, I guess, right? And how many of you are not from Poland? So, okay. Okay, maybe like a quarter of you. Any Polish Americans here? The entire room, not a single hand. I was hoping to find another cousin. I'm Polish American. I'll speak about that just a little bit to sort of give you some context here. So, on Thursday, I'm going to be going to a little town about 2 hours northeast of here called Szpiech. And this is the family homeland for the Lasicas. I hired a local family historian with the help of Joanna from Bitspiration, so thank you very much. We're going to be driving out there. We're going to sort of accost the parish priest, see if we can dig up some old marriage records, birth records from the early 1800s, and try to trace back our family tree even further. And believe it or not, these records are not digitized. So can anybody say startup opportunity? You know, I think there might be something there. So let me just tell you a little bit about what I've been doing with my Polish heritage. And that is, in the 1990s, I began doing I sort of took it upon myself to become the family historian. So I started writing away to different official records keepers to get birth records, death records of relatives living and dead. Going all the way back. So I actually wrote away at one point to the National Archives. That's the United States organization that keeps the official records of every immigrant who's come through over the years. My parents, my grandparents, we call them Jaju and Babci, came over to Ellis Island. My grandmother in 1909. My Jaju in February 13th, 1912. And that was just a month before the sinking of the Titanic, to give you some context. I was kind of astonished when I finally got a response from the National Archives to actually look at the ship manifest written by the ship manifest clerk. And my God, they actually spelled the name the same way we're using it today, back in 1912. And my grandmother's name, too, my babci's name, Dolenta. So that was really exciting for us. My grandfather opened a Polish bakery, Polska Pierkarnia. I think it's how you say it, right? All right, I'm butchering the whole language, all right. But in Garfield, New Jersey, so he was an entrepreneur. This was basically his startup, a Polish bakery. And over the years, he grew it. We spent many weekends in the basement of that household in Garfield, New Jersey. That's him in the background, always looking very serious in all the photographs. And that's me in the front, looking a little confused with my family. And I have these really vivid memories growing up of going over there, especially around the holiday time. because all the uncles would gather in the basement and they would all get totally drunk and sing Polish Christmas carols. Then none of us could understand a word of them, but it was just kind of a fun family tradition. And over the years, this family tree that I've built out has grown to over 600 people, living and dead, in many countries around the world, including a lot of cousins in Poland here who I still haven't met in person. But the more research I did, the more interesting it became. We found a second cousin in Hawaii that we've become really close to. We found an entire wing of the Lasica family that actually came later than my grandparents and settled in Toronto. What was kind of fun was a few years ago I was speaking at a conference in Toronto, and my second cousin Stella, I talked to her and she said, "Oh, don't bother renting a rental car. I'll just pick you up at the airport. We'll come over to my house, meet the family." So I figured I'd go over there, meet her and her husband, her two kids. No. They actually did a surprise little party for me. So they had 25 people show up. Every cousin, every kid from the neighborhood came over, all these relatives who I never met in person. And they created this really amazing Polish feast for us. So the kielbasa and the spinach dip and the little meatballs and the pierogies and all, a lot of stuff I couldn't even, I didn't know what it was. And this was before food spotting, by the way, so I didn't take any photographs of the picture of the food itself. But it was really touching, and we've kept in touch over the years. We're Facebook friends with a bunch of these folks now. I've been invited to a couple of their kids' weddings even. So we have grown our clan a little bit, of the Lasica clan. And, I often think about this. I often think about, my Babci and my Jaju, and of all the other immigrants, ancestors who came over, and, what courage it took, what bravery, what, fortitude and insight, and what willingness to sort of jump into something entirely new and sort of reimagine themselves and their destiny and their family's destiny. And going back generations, probably some of you have that same kind of experience of people who've taken that bold leap into the unknown and charted these new waters to a new place. And so fast forward to today, I'm doing my own thing. I'm doing a startup. It involves big boats. I'll tell you about it later if you like. But basically, I think we ought to, everybody in this room who's working on a startup, if you're an entrepreneur or helping them in an advisory role in some way, think about this. Think about the people that you're touching. Think about the reimagining that's taking place. What is that change that you want to see in the world? I hope it's not that you're just trying to go out there and build that billion-dollar Silicon Valley company. I think that's cool. That's spoko if you're doing that. But you want to do something else. You want to make a change in the world. How are you going to make the world a better place through your innovation? And when you're doing this, when you're out there creating this new reality for all of us, you have to start thinking about who are the people who are going to be using this, who are your customers, who are your audiences. And it starts with, this new digital generation. Here's my kid in Santa Monica last year. And I already see him with these completely different set of media habits than I had, certainly at his age, and even today. He's sort of taken this off into all new directions. So you've got to start thinking about what is it that these folks want, and what can you give them that's going to make the world a better place. Now, I'm not going to go through all these numbers, but you all know there is a revolution that's been going on in social media over the years. Started years ago with blogging, but it really took off after Facebook came along. And then 2005 is when the revolution really took off with the launch of YouTube. I think Twitter came a year later. Half a billion tweets every single day on Twitter. Let's see, YouTube accounts for over 10% of all the traffic on the internet every single day. And what we forget as Americans is that 9 out of 10 people around the world who are using the internet are not from America, right? So you've got to start thinking about what are the kinds of things that will appeal to them to make their world better as well. Don is going to be talking tomorrow about mobile usage. This chart is just a few months old from Mary Meeker, but I'm sure it's already out of date. But just gives you some sort of context of here's where we are today, but look where we're going with these mobile devices. So it's not just about social, it's all about mobile as well. And as more and more people gravitate to these amazing supercomputers that are in our hands, today's iPhone is 1,000 times more powerful than the supercomputers that sent a man to the moon. So we haven't even begun to really understand what that means for our society when everybody's sort of empowered in that same way. For the past 7 years, I've been going to something called the Santa Clara Grand Prix in Silicon Valley. The greatest swimmers in the entire world come every June. I've been taking photographs of all these world-class athletes. I got some amazing photographs of Michael Phelps over the years, Natalie Coughlin, Dana Vollmer, all these Olympians that you see every 4 years. This year, Michael retired, but there's a new champion in town, Ryan Lochte. Some of you might recognize him. And by the way, ladies, he's single. He's the, I think he's been voted like the hunkiest guy on the planet. But the really fun thing that I noticed this year was that in past years, when Michael or Ryan would go over to the grandstands, everybody would take their programs out and ask for an autograph, right? This year, they did something different. All the young people were out there with their camera phones, and they all wanted a photograph of themselves with the swimmer, with Ryan, with all these other Olympians. And so this is my photo. I love this photo. But it's sort of emblematic of what's happening, of the change in media habits, where we don't want to just, I mean, the autograph's nice, but how cool is it to have a photograph of yourself on your own device that you take with Ryan Lochte? It's a new form of media habits that are evolving. Some of you might have seen this image of congregation at the Vatican, 2005, versus a similar kind of gathering at the Vatican, 2013. Notice anything different? Just 8 years, and now, it's sort of ingrained into our culture. Everybody wants to be part of that media conversation. So let's bring this into startup land here. We're all here. We're all building these amazing new startups and products, and the focus is, yes, it's on product, but also probably there are some of you who want to do more than build a product. Some of you want to build a business, right? So that's what I'm going to be talking about once you start building this really amazing product that's going to be changing the world, well, what then? What are the other things that you need to do as a founder? So I would suggest a couple of things. One is, I'm not going to tell you the answer. I'm not going to say this is what you need to do. This is the wisdom from Silicon Valley. I'm going to say, start thinking about some of these questions. See what's applicable to you or maybe isn't applicable to you. But some of the things that we're going to be talking about for the rest of this 45 minutes is about the messaging. What is that one brilliant thing that you're building? Have you sort of come up with the kernel? It's sort of like a really shortened elevator pitch. So your elevator pitch is like, what, 20 seconds long? Well, you got to boil it down to like 6 words, tops, 3, 4, 5, 6 words. What is the change you're going to create in the world? What is that message? What is that thing that's going to get people really excited about your product, about your service, about your startup? What's the one brilliant thing you're going to be doing and you're going to be known for? And then beyond that, you have to start thinking about how are you going to be building community? How are you going to be attracting this community of messengers, advocates, evangelists, champions for your startup, for your big idea? What are those kinds of things you're going to be putting out there to make them just sort of salivate and want to get on board and help spread your message? And then number three, I've been talking about this for like 10 years, about the idea that we're all now media makers. We're all part of the media. We don't just rely on other people to report on us anymore. We want to help tell our own story. So how do you do that? So here's an example. Zappos, I'm sure most of you have heard of this company. Started, of course, as a startup in 1999 by Tony Hsieh. Sold to Amazon 12 years later for $1.2 billion. There's your $1 billion, Silicon Valley. And it was kind of cool, though, that all along, even early on, Tony would say that he's running a customer service company that happens to sell shoes. So that was a great mindset, and that was his core message. You know, it's all about the customer, being passionate about that customer. And a few years later, he created this list of core values for Zappos. So I'm not saying that you all have to go out there and write this list of 10 core values for your startup, but it's a good idea to sort of start thinking about what is that message, what is the brand that you're trying to create, what is that core value proposition. And look at some of the words here, right? Wow, change, fun, open-minded, learning, honest, family, passionate, humble. These are great terms, and I think they all work together, and they really do sort of embody the Zappos brand as it's come to be known. One thing that Zappos does, maybe you don't know this, is during their hiring process, they actually ask people about their social accounts. Are you big on Twitter? You know, are you on social media? Do you do Facebook? You know, they don't necessarily hire somebody because they've got 5,000 followers versus 500, but they do sort of take into account whether or not these people are comfortable with being representatives of the brand. So I see a lot of organizations, a lot of businesses, nonprofit startups, sort of thinking that, oh, well, you know, we'll hire a marketer and they'll do social media for us. And my suggestion is something, again, just for you to think about, is to see if you can sort of embody it into all areas of your startup, into its very DNA. So creating that kind of social DNA of thinking that every single person on your team might actually, at one point or another, be the front lines, the ambassador to the public, the first person who somebody's going to be encountering to talk about your brand. You know, do they actually know what they're talking about? Do they know what that message is? Do they know what that core value proposition is? You know, are they comfortable in talking about that? So you have to decide at some point, are you going to be like a stealth organization? Are you a stealth startup? Or are you going to be a social startup? I'm actually going to come down here a little bit, since I'm falling off the stage anyway, and talk about the idea that this, and by the way, I'm probably going to drive these camera people crazy. Sorry about that, guys. Don't sort of delegate your messaging to somebody else, or to say that the marketing team or the head of marketing, when you finally hire this person, is going to own it. I think the founder has to embody what the brand is, what the message is, and start from day one on how to do that. I met a few months ago with Yuri Engstrom, who founded a really cool startup called Ditto, a mobile startup that was purchased by Groupon. So now he's an angel because he's got money. And I said, look, I'm going to be working on this startup. Should I just keep it a secret? What if somebody steals the idea, right? And I think he said something very wise, that you want to be a thought leader. You want to create thought leadership in your sector. You want to be known as the go-to person about this subject. So don't worry about somebody else taking your idea. If they take it and they run with it and they do better than you would have done, you know, God bless them. But 99 out of 100 times that doesn't happen. And then you're wasting all these cycles of just secrecy and not getting the word out about your brand. So think about doing that, of putting yourself out there, becoming a center of attention, of being the person that other people come to, that you attract attention. You have people knocking on your door saying, I want to be part of that startup because it sounds like a really cool thing and a great idea. Now, there are lots of different examples I could have included in this chart, but look at all the different, and by the way, I'm coming out here to say, you can stop me at any time. We don't have to just do Q&A at the end. So if I'm confusing you, or if you want to add a point, let's make this as interactive as possible. So you probably have heard of all of these companies, right? All these startups. But think about how they became so popular, and you know, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of people are now using these services. Pinterest, they have 10 times more people who are repinning than pinning. All right, so that's the social element of Pinterest. They sort of baked it into their product. Instagram was all about sharing, from day one. So that's, again, that they didn't need much of a go-to-market strategy because it was part of their product for people to share their content with their friends and their networks. YouTube. I created a startup called ourmedia.org back in 2005. It was my checking account versus Silicon Valley's bankrolling YouTube. It wasn't quite a fair fight, so Larry and Sergey never came around with a $1.5 billion offer for my startup. But what they did better than us with more resources and more know-how eventually was that they made the videos shareable by letting people embed the videos into, we take this for granted, but this was a revolution back in 2005, 2006. Nobody was thinking about how to do this, how to share media beyond just watching it on a single site, but actually letting tens of millions of people share it on their own terms. Dropbox, brilliant idea. We all have these offers all the time from about referrals, and who does referrals to friends? It's like, I'm not going to bother my friends with this stuff, but they offered people like, 250 free megabytes a month of storage if you refer a friend and they sign up for Dropbox, and that is how they got 60% of their customers through these kinds of friend referrals. So think about this when you're doing your own startup. What is that thing that you can sort of bake into your product that's going to make it shareable, whether it's a shareable object or some other aspect of the product that works in the same kind of way? All right, so the second point beyond that core messaging idea is the messengers. My famous tagline that I use all the time is, don't do all the heavy lifting. I mean, look at this guy. You don't want to be like this guy. Look at the expression on his face, right? So the idea here is that you can't just have your own site. You can't just have one source of content where you're expecting people to come to a destination website and learn everything. You want to have people be your evangelists and champions. And how do you do that? There's lots of different ways. Let's talk about some of them. Robin earlier today was talking about hiring a PR person. I agree with him completely. I think you don't do it right away. You might want to do it after a year or two when the time is right, when you're mature enough. But I actually do a little public relations as part of my job running socialmedia.biz. We get calls from startups, we get calls from businesses asking us to sort of parachute in and tell their story for zero budget, and that's always a good idea. But I want to tell you that I think you should not think about it in those terms. Don't outsource your story. You should have your founder, your founders, some of the other executives sort of responsible for helping to organically create that message, and then finding the influencers out there who will help spread that message. So there are a lot of tools. I'll show you a few of those tools later on. But again, like Robin said, you don't want to go to them on day one with an ask when you're launching and saying, "Hey, help publicize our startup." You want to schmooze them up. Start with journalists, but also other thought leaders. Identify who are the big kahunas in your sector, who's writing on blogs, who's tweeting about this stuff, who's got other kinds of media sources, and then understand that you want to sort of help them out too. So it's a two-way thing. Make it very conversational and support each other. One of the things we do and recommend for some of our clients is content marketing. What does that mean? It means that you need to be found on Google, man. You need to have something that the search engines are going to find valuable enough to put high in the rankings when people are searching on a term related to your startup, your sector, whatever it is that you're building. There was a study that over 90% of people never click beyond the first page of Google search results. So you have to be on that first page. It can be, it doesn't mean you have to rank for a major keyword. You can rank for a long tail keyword that's relevant to your subject, to your startup. All that means is you have to find out what are those sort of terms that hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people are actually searching on, and then you have to go out and create content around it, whether that's a blog post or some other way of doing it or getting other people to write for you. That's always a good trick. You know, that's how Ariana got to be a millionaire. But a lot of people are willing to do that, to become thought leaders in the space, and you're helping them out, and then they will eventually help you out. We also suggest ambassador programs very often. So a lot of the major brands are doing this. If you've got a cool enough startup with a cool enough idea, you know, maybe people will be willing to come on board. You can sort of invite them in as an early beta tester, or give them some other reward, give them free storage like Dropbox or whatever it is. So you want to think about building a community, not an audience. So I love this quote by my friend Chris Brogan, the social media marketer, who says, "An audience will watch you fall on a sword. A community will fall on a sword for you." So old media always thinks in terms of audiences. You know, we're not old media in this room. We're new media. We're startups. We have to think about how to create that community, engage with people, and get them to fall on that sword, or hopefully it won't go to that extreme, but do things for you. And the last idea I want to sort of throw out there to see if anybody, you know, wants to push back on this is the idea that, you know, whether you run a business or a nonprofit or a startup, your startup is a media organization. If you've got an online presence, a website, a Facebook account, a Twitter account, well, guess what? You're a media company. You know, you're a media publisher in some sense, at least. So that blue fish here, you know, it used to be just Hollywood, right? It used to be just big media of the big newspapers. But you know, even new media companies like Read Web or TechCrunch or the Next Web. But now we can all be our own media company and media publisher, so that the red fishies will be following us. You know, because they're going to be following content. They're going to be following conversation that's attached to that content. You're not going to have conversation about your startup if there's no content that's created around that. Now, one of the kind of fun stories that, how many people heard of this story of Elon Musk versus the New York Times? So only about 4 of you. Earlier this year, here's how to explain. The auto reviewer for the New York Times, a fellow by the name of John Broder, decided to take out the new Tesla S series car for a test drive around the East Coast. It was very cold. He drove it around, and after a while, he reported in his scathing review that the battery died and he had to actually have the car towed. So, totally brutal review, right? Well, not so fast, because he was screwing with Elon Musk, and you don't do that, man. So Elon actually decided to go and find out what the story was. So he actually got the car's records, the digital records, and he asked his team to go through it. And lo and behold, he found a number of discrepancies from the New York Times story. So he claimed that the reporter actually was driving around and around a parking lot trying to kill the battery. He was disobeying the instructions of the Tesla team by putting on the air conditioner ultra high, even though it was freezing outside, doing all these kinds of weird things, just to sort of test the limits and to get the story that he wanted. So then he published a little blog post about it on his site, a most peculiar test drive. And this got amazing traction in social media, tens of millions of shares. So I'm not suggesting that this was necessarily the best way for Elon to go, because he sort of publicized the fact that the New York Times hated his car, but it sort of embodies and exemplifies the idea that we don't have to just take it from big media anymore. We don't have to just depend on the good graces of a reporter who might actually be wrong in some cases about his conclusions. We can sort of tell our own story. So think about how that might apply to your own startup as well. Any questions so far on what I've been talking about? We've got like 15 minutes left. If not, I'll talk about some of these tools. So some of you probably have heard of some of these, probably some of you haven't. I just came across Launch Rock last year. It's a really cool thing. You just go in there, plug in your URL of your site. If you have a Facebook or Twitter account, it'll do that for you too. So it'll put up a free page for you that sort of socializes like a sign-up form for people. Even if you don't have a product yet, if you start creating interest in the product by having people sign up in an email field, you can start collecting email addresses that way. I think it's a really good idea. Google Analytics is the most powerful analytics tool ever created. We know about Dropbox, Google Docs, really great collaboration tools for you and your team members. I use Hootsuite Pro every single day with me and my team members. It's $5.99 if you want analytics per month, $15 a month if you have 2 team members. And this is a good way to sort of get other people involved in your organization to help tell the story, to help tweet out different kind of fun things that are happening on Twitter. You can also integrate it with Facebook and LinkedIn and other services too. But I do, believe it or not, I do a lot of my tweeting at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and nobody's on Twitter then, at least in the US. Probably in Poland you're on, so maybe I'll do more of that. But the idea is that you can schedule your tweets that way. And there's a free version if you just want to do it yourself. So schedule your tweets out for later in the morning, prime time when people are up and awake on the East Coast, on the West Coast of the U.S., or in Europe, depending on what market you're trying to hit. And you can schedule that for days or weeks in advance. What else? You guys probably know about Agile and continuous integration, but we're not going to get too geeky here. Reportive, if you don't know this, I think Google bought them like 2 years ago. Is that right, Don? You don't even know what it is. So Reportive is a must-have tool. It's an integration into Gmail. So whenever I get an email from somebody, then I respond to them, I want to know who the hell this person is. 9 out of 10 times, I have no idea who this person is. Are they worth bothering with? Well, Reportive will tell you. It'll show you all of their social accounts. It'll pull their information that's associated with that email address. And tell you, well, here's their Twitter account. You can click on over, see who's, how big they are on Twitter. This is somebody I need to pay attention to. He's an influencer. I got to schmooze with them. It'll show you their Facebook account. So anyway, it's free. So just download it, integrate it with Gmail, and you'll be good to go. There's a new site that just launched called Littlebird at getlittlebird.com. I think you can sign up for some free reports. So what it does, it's a new site created by Marshall Kirkpatrick, former editor at Read Write Web. And if you go in there and you type in a term around your startup, around your sector, around your cause, whatever it is, around the subject that you're focusing on, it'll show you all the top people who are the influencers in that sector, starting with Twitter, and as of a couple weeks ago, they integrated Facebook and LinkedIn, I think, as well. So I tried this for my startup, and wow, it just showed me the top 100 Twitterers who write about big boats. So you can do the same, so check it out. Cloud, of course, if you've heard of that, it's a way to sort of track influencers. I've been using LinkedIn to find advisors for my startup. Gotten a lot of success. People very respectful and responding on LinkedIn more than you might even think. So it's not just people who are harassing you to do them a favor. You can actually use it proactively. Lots of Twitter tools. PictureEngine you might not have heard of. PictureEngine is a service, I think they're about 2 or 3 years old, based in Wyoming, believe it or not. A former journalist created it. And what it is instead of writing a press release and putting it on your own site, it's a sort of template or blueprint where you can go in, write in every field, like the description of what the story is, what you're announcing, the headline. It'll optimize it for SEO, so it'll find keywords for you. It'll find the right, it'll ask you to add media to it. So are there any images that can be attached to it that people might want to be using when they're writing about your subject? It'll attach social accounts like your Twitter account. If you've got a Facebook page around your startup, it'll let you add that too. So it socializes your press releases. That's what they do there at Pitch Engine. Google Keywords tool is all about finding those keywords I was talking about earlier. Of course, use these social plugins all the time, whether it's the Facebook plugins or other, add this or share this. Make sure, if you're doing a blog post, for example, you don't want to just have people come to your blog post, read it. You want them to share it with their own networks. You know, the average person who shares something on their Facebook page or their Facebook account is read by over 40 people. So you can magnify the reach and scope of what you're trying to put out there by getting people to be your champions for you. And I think the best kept secret on the web, frankly, is this URL, flickr.com/Creative Commons. If you don't know what that is, it's, you know, I've been using Creative Commons since they were founded about 9-10 years ago. It's a nonprofit in San Francisco, but it lets you fine-tune the copyright of your content. And what I do is whenever I write a blog post, I put it under a Creative Commons non-commercial license. And I've put like 5,000 of my photographs under the same license. And there are tens of millions of people around the world who are doing the same. So it's the generosity and the spirits of the community who are sort of giving back to people who need it. So you can take these photographs, you can use them in your press releases, on your website, in your blog, in your annual report, whatever you've got that you need media around, photographs, video. All these people want in return is credit. So attribution, just write in the name of the person who took the photograph and you're good to go. You don't have to pay anything. And that is it. I always leave with this little admonition for people who are thinking and struggling with making change, from the great Lao Tse, who once said, if you do not change direction, you may end up where you are heading. So think about that. It's really easy to just do what you've been doing. So spoko. Don't forget to download this presentation at that URL, bit.ly/ oh, it's bit.ly JD, not bit.JD, because I was already taken. And follow me on Twitter. I'll follow you back, J.D.Lasica. So, it's what? That's not my license. I would like that to be my license, right? That's really cool, isn't it? All right, so there must be some questions, because we covered so much here today. So talk to me in Polish or English. We'll get a translator. And that's it. So.
Do you have any question?
Oh, it's bit.ly/bit.ly.JD. So sorry for that typo. Yeah. bit.ly, not just bit. Yeah. I'll come by later and fix it for you. All right, who else? Come on, social media, it's really cool and hot, man. No questions? All right, then we'll end it here. All right, so.
Thank you, JD.
All right, thanks very much.